All right, class 11. What do we eat? Thank you, Jace, for the great intro. Understanding healthy food choices and eating on a budget. Roman numeral 1, what foods should we be eating in today's confusing world? Does anyone think it's confusing to know how to eat these days? It's very, very confusing. So, a lot of people are making changes when it comes to their diet, but it's really hard because of the options we have available to us. There's a lot of things working against us, unfortunately. Government subsidizes the things that aren't good for us and doesn't subsidize the things that are good for us. We're a convenience, fast-paced society, so everything's grab and go on the run. Everything's packaged, everything's quick, microwave, etc. So when we decide, hey, we want to eat the right things, it's almost like we don't know what to do because we don't really know what like the original form of food kind of looks like anymore. So we really have to understand this, and the bottom line is we're going to have to take time in the kitchen. We're going to have to get back to learning what food is and how to grow it and how to prepare it and actually making the time and effort to make quality food. So I always ask myself a few questions when I'm buying food or I'm getting ready to eat something. And again, we're not going to be perfect. And in fact, we should never try to be perfect because that usually ends up in failure. But we can start making changes right away. You know, if you're I just think about when I was in college. So if you're living on fast food and ramen noodles, macaroni and cheese, college student food, shoot for 50-50. If you're already eating pretty healthy, shoot for 90-10. But start somewhere. Some of the questions I try to ask myself before I'm getting ready to eat something is, number one, is this a food God created? I mean, look at it. There's some things that are obviously not created by God. And I gave a couple examples, Twizzlers and Coca-Cola. That's obviously not created by God. But bread is more confusing. So we have to understand what bread is today and what it used to be, which we talked a lot about in the last class. Number two, if it's a God-given food, as in bread, for example, how close is it to the original design in which God created it, including the ingredients in which it's created with? Does it have artificial ingredients? Is it loaded with preservatives, added sugars, high fructose corn syrup? So people, we talked about last class, are buying whole wheat bread because it's better than the white bread, yet it's still got 17 ingredients and high fructose corn syrup and preservatives and still processed the same way. Number three, is the food fresh? This is a big one. Farmers markets are just starting to get going. So I encourage you guys to explore those if you haven't in the past. Food is at its highest nutritional level when it's ripe, and you pick it and you eat it. And that doesn't happen with anything in the grocery store. Now, there are some stores that support local. I want to say Hen House is one of them that's pretty good at supporting local farmers and getting local produce. But most of the stuff in the grocery store is picked way before it's ripe. Obviously, especially if it's stuff from Mexico or apples brought in from New Zealand. I mean, things are brought in from all over the world, and they're picked way before it's ripe. And there's not a lot of nutrition in that food. Number four, how is the food grown, under what conditions? The benefit of shopping at the local farmers markets and buying local food is farmers have integrity in what they do. The giant food companies don't. So you want to be buying your food from somebody who has integrity. And then number five, when I put this food into my body, is it actually going to build health, strengthen my holy temple, bring glory and honor to God as an indwelling place for the Holy Spirit? Because that's what he calls us to do. Are we thankful for the amazing foods that he's given us? Paragraph B, eat foods that bring life. It sounds so simple, but a lot of the foods we're eating today do not promote life. Unfortunately, many people do not seek a deeper understanding of health and the human body until they discover limitations within their own body. So this is why some people they're kind of joked about, like the healthy health freaks, and other people don't even think about health or what they put in their body. And a lot of times that's because They haven't found those physical limitations in their body yet. But when they do, they'll all of a sudden become the weird health freak because they'll do anything that it takes to recover and restore their health. But I'm really encouraging people to start now, even if you're in pretty good health. Don't wait until to see how far you can push the limits of your body before it fails, and then you have to try to correct it. It's much easier to prevent illness than it is to correct an illness or a disease condition. Paragraph C, when we know restoring health is important for us, where do we turn? This hit me really hard this week. When people are sick, and it's going to sound funny, but when people are sick, they don't say, okay, I have diabetes, so maybe if I eat more Twizzlers or drink more Coca-Cola, I can fix this, or I can heal this. Or if I have cancer, or if I have some type of disease. We don't ever turn to man-made, artificially created non-foods to try to heal our body. We always turn to what God created. Always. Now, some people are turning to pharmaceuticals, for example, and there is a time and a place for pharmaceuticals. They can help with some conditions in the short term, but it's never a long-term solution. Nothing that's man-made and nothing that's synthetic builds and restores health. God has created everything that builds and restores health. So that's where we always turn when we're sick. We turn to what God created. I think it's really important to understand that, because we need to turn to God in so many aspects of our life, but the food is a big one that is missing in a lot of people's lives. So it begs the question, why do we put non-life promoting substances in our body? And this is not a condemning statement, because every single person has done it. I mean, this is all I did for the first 30 years of my life. You know, it was maybe 90-10, as in 10 being what I'm supposed to put in my body. So we've all done it, we've all been there, and this is why we really need each other, and we really need education, we really need knowledge. And I really think God is grieved over this issue, because one thing that's great about God is he gives us free will. He gives us the choices to do what we want to do. He doesn't inhibit us from having the free will to choose. And if we choose to eat these man-made artificial foods, he doesn't like it. I think it pains him. And then when he sees our bodies fail and we get sick and we're crying out to him because we're sick and we need healing, I really think it grieves his heart. But I think he really loves it when we turn back to him. And he rejoices in that. So, again, I just encourage us to just to partner with him in this area from the beginning, right now, regardless of where you're at currently in your health. Paragraph D, the goal should be to increase knowledge and understanding of the beautiful and amazing body in which God has so graciously given us. With this knowledge will come better choices. So Roman numeral 2, life-giving and healing foods. Paragraph A, food is defined as, I gave you the definition of food. It should be something that promotes energy, stimulates growth, and maintains life. And I put these 10 things in no particular order. I'm sure it's not perfect. I'm sure there's things that are missing. But these are 10 basic areas of foods that promote life. Number 1, fermented foods. This is something that people are really getting into today. Fermented foods is something that cultures all around the world have been consuming for centuries. It's something that's completely missing from the standard American diet, and we're realizing how important they are, and we're starting to reintegrate them slowly. Fermented foods are very powerful. They're living foods. They contain live enzymes, healthy bacteria. They heal the gut, the intestinal tract. It's so critical for our immune system. 80-90% of our immune system is the health of our intestinal tract. This is the thing that repairs it, the fermented foods. So I gave you some examples of fermented foods. Now, you can ferment about anything. Fermented vegetables, sauerkraut, kimchi are examples of that. Miso, tempeh, and natto are fermented soy products. Kombucha, yogurt, and kefir apple cider vinegar with the mother. Those are a list of a few fermented foods that you can start consuming. The Bragg's apple cider vinegar is a real easy way to go. It's affordable, and there are creative ways to consume it because it's pretty tart. It's pretty, I don't know if tart's the word, but it's really strong. Yeah, I see some people cringing. Yeah, it's really powerful. But there are some creative ways to do it. It's great on salad dressing, for example. So let's talk about some reasons why fermented foods are awesome. Number one, they improve digestion. It's like partially digested already because they've been fermented and broken down. They restore balance of bacteria in the gut, as I already mentioned. That's really critical for your immune system. They're raw and they're rich in enzymes, living enzymes. They increase the vitamin content. So a lot of people aren't aware that the healthy bacteria in our gut actually is where the vast majority of our B vitamins and vitamin K come from. They're actually produced by these living bacteria that are inside of our bodies. So you will automatically get a lot more vitamins by consuming fermented foods. They help us to absorb foods better. And fermented foods last a long time. Milk will spoil, but your kefir, your yogurt, your fermented vegetables, and we have fermented vegetables sitting down in the basement that have been fermenting for weeks. And as long as they're not exposed to oxygen, you don't have to start refrigerating them. So they last a really, really long time. And it's inexpensive. We're going to talk at the end about eating on a budget, but fermented foods is a very powerful food that's really affordable. There's some, like the kefirs and the yogurts and the kombucha, you can reuse from an existing batch to create a new batch. So it really saves a lot of money. And fermenting food increases the flavor. So a lot of fermented foods that we eat taste very good. Number two, fresh vegetables and vegetable juices. Obviously, the most healing thing on the planet. Everybody knows that vegetables are good for you. So I really want to stress juicing. So a lot of people are learning about juicing and starting to do some juice fasts and realizing the healing benefits of juicing. And pretty much every health-related program that's out there involves eating vegetables and or vegetable juicing. You want to get the most bang for your buck and the most nutrition you can possibly get in one meal, it's vegetable juices. There's nothing else that even comes close. Vegetables are the most perfect food God has given us, and it's the most varied food that He's given us. There's more types of vegetables than anything else that exists on the planet. There's a reason for that. He wants us to eat a wide variety of them. They're high in fiber, so they're great for weight loss. Makes you feel fuller when you consume foods that contain fiber. I mentioned in a class before that that's one of the tricks of the fast food industry is have nothing on the menu that contains fiber. So you never feel full, and you just keep eating and eating and eating and eating. But if you eat fiber-rich foods, that won't happen. You'll feel full. They don't have artificial sugars, and they have lots of vitamins and minerals, so they help maintain energy levels. Unlike your quick fixes, your caffeine, your high-sugar foods kind of have that roller coaster effect where you're crashing all the time. That will not happen with vegetables. And we know, I mean, just repeating what you guys know, but nothing better for preventing illness. Cancer, heart disease, diabetes, osteoporosis, vegetables, nothing better. And cleansing. Nothing works better for cleansing the body, cleansing toxins out of the body. And I gave a whole list just for fun, a list of a few vegetables. I know there's a lot missing, but God has just given us a lot of choices in this area. I want to mention a couple people referred me to a movie, and I finally watched it. It's the Back to Eden one about growing your own food. And it's awesome. I just want to share with you real quick what it was because it definitely inspired me. The fact that this man had this revelation from God that was so simple, yet so profound, that he found a way to garden where he really doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to water. He doesn't have to fertilize. He doesn't have to, well, maybe pick a few weeds, but it takes him hardly any time at all. It's fascinating. And all he did was mimic what God has already done in nature. You walk out into a forest and everything is growing big and beautiful and lush, and there's nobody out there spraying pesticides or fertilizing or doing all these things. It almost kind of makes us look silly of all, because we stray so far from God and trying to find all these better ways of doing things, and we realize that it's just right in front of us. And this movie does a really good job of showing us how simple it can be. What I thought was really cool about it, too, is that one of the things he mentioned that hit me that I thought was really profound is there's things that God has given us he's given to us for a reason. And I think one of those is the sweet taste. There's a reason we like sweet and we enjoy sweet. And he talked about in the movie that when he grew his food in his garden, even the vegetables, everything tasted sweet. And I think God did that on purpose. If we had fresh foods grown the way they're supposed to grow, they taste sweeter. They actually taste good. We don't know what good food tastes like anymore. Unfortunately, I think what happens a lot of time is the enemy takes what God has given us that's good and turns it into something negative. He turns it into addiction. He turns it into disease. And that's what he's done with sugar. That's what he's done with that sweet taste. But if we get back to doing what God originally designed, the way he designed it, we can enjoy that and bring health to our bodies. So I just thought that was a really great point he made in that movie. Number 3, fruits. Fruits are amazing, loaded with vitamins and minerals. I don't have to give you all the benefits of fresh fruit. Unfortunately, today, things have been monocultured. I mentioned that in the past. That's where you take one variety of apple, even though God has given us thousands and thousands of variety of apples. We take one and we grow it in huge fields, making it very prone to insects and disease and very higher in sugar. And it really detracts from the nutrient content of the food. And because today, this is one of those foods where we have to be aware that if we have a compromised health condition, we're diabetic, we have infectious issues, fruit is something that can cause problems with a lot of people. So unfortunately, this is something we'd have to keep an eye on, even as amazing it is as a food that God has given us. I highly recommend eating it in whole food form as much as possible. Fruit juices are okay in moderation. If you want a good rule, I like the 80-20 rules. If you're juicing, at least 80% vegetables, maybe throw in an apple for taste. Now, if you're really healthy and in really good shape and you're exercising a lot, you can probably get away with a little more fruit juice, but a lot of people with compromised conditions are not going to do well with fruit juice at all. I'm sure there's people here that have experienced that. And fruits as well should be eaten by a local farmer. Fresh, picked off the tree, hands down the best way to do it. Number 4, bone broths and organ meats. Now, this might come as a little bit of a surprise for some people. I think a lot of us are under the assumption that the only way to be healthy is to eat vegetables. And that is a critically important part of being healthy. But I want to give you the broad spectrum of the things that God has given us. And I think bone broths and organ meats definitely fits that bill. This is something that people have been consuming all around the globe for thousands of years. And in fact, I think it's something that we've been consuming up until a couple generations ago. You go back to most people's, depending on your age in here, your mom or your grandma probably made bone broth soup all the time. Probably cooked the whole chicken, maybe threw in some eggshells. She actually made chicken noodle soup with a real chicken. And it actually did help you with your cold or flu. So this isn't anything new, and this shouldn't come as a surprise that it's a healing food. I think a lot of people might cringe when they think about consuming organ meats. But again, a couple generations ago, it was pretty standard stuff. And this has been thoroughly researched as well. There are actually some healing programs that really incorporate this and do a great job of healing people. One of them, and I gave you the website here, it's called the GAPS diet. GAP stands for Gut and Psychology Syndrome. This woman has worked with thousands of people in healing behavioral and psychological disorders by healing the gut using animal bone broths. We're talking schizophrenia, bipolar, autism, some major issues. Major issues. Gut-brain connection. Gut's your second brain. We did a whole class on that. So gut really can affect psychological and behavioral and emotional disorders. So really critically important, because we somehow are under this belief that there's no understanding of why we get a lot of these disorders. And we're really starting to find some important links. It's also very healing for a leaky gut. So people that have a lot of food allergies, food sensitivities, reactions to a lot of foods, the bone broth can really heal that. Going to organ meats, Weston Price, I gave his website, westonaprice.org. I refer to him a lot. He has amazing research and information on his website. If you're not familiar with him, he was a dentist who traveled the world to find out why Americans had such bad teeth. And he went to other cultures and found that it took about 7 mouths he had to look in to find one cavity. It didn't matter what the diet was, they all had good, healthy teeth. So obviously it's diet that causes our poor teeth, all of our mouth problems here in America and a lot of Western cultures. But he's really big on raw milk, healthy, lean meats, and he talks about organ meats as well. It's really fascinating to me if you look in nature, and if you look at prey animals, like a lion, for example, when they make a kill, the first thing they eat are the organs, because that's where the nutrition is. The second thing they eat is the fat, and the last thing they eat is the meat, the actual flesh. It's the last thing they eat. The organ meats are loaded with iron and other minerals. It's loaded with all your fat-soluble vitamins, because that's where they store. Vitamins A, D, E, and K store in the liver. So that's where all your fat-soluble vitamins are. And people are chronically deficient in fats, and they're chronically deficient in fat-soluble vitamins. And I gave the example of if somebody's anemic, start eating liver. Never have a problem with anemia again. The least nutrition is in the flesh, the actual meat, the flesh. That's where the least amount of nutrition is. And unfortunately, that's what Americans are eating oftentimes 3 meals a day. And that will contribute to sickness and disease. That is very acid forming, and there's very little nutrition in there. Yeah, there's protein, but just the protein's not going to get you so far when you're not consuming vitamins and minerals and getting all the other healthy aspects. Now, I want to stress something here when we're talking about organ meats and we're talking about bone broths. Is I highly encourage you to find organic, pasture-raised, no hormone, no antibiotics. Please never eat the liver of one of those factory-farmed animals. That just doesn't make any sense. So really, we want to be getting quality, healthy animals if you decide to do this. And I think there's a lot of benefits to doing that. Number 5, grains. We talked about that all last class. So I don't want to talk about grains because refer back to last class if you missed that. I want to talk about the alternatives. They're called the ancient seed grains. They're called pseudo-cereals, pseudo-grains, and they are quinoa, amaranth, millet, and buckwheat. These are the 4 grains that are recommended on the Body Ecology program by Donna Gates, which is my favorite program on the planet for healing the body. They are all gluten-free, and none of them feed infections. Quinoa is my favorite. and I put in there how to pronounce it, queen, K-E-E-N-wah, quinoa, because it's a weird word, and people say quinoa and all kinds of things, and not that it has to be a perfect way to pronounce everything, but this is actually how it's pronounced. It's quinoa. It's hands down my favorite. It's called the mother of all grains. Quinoa, but the Native Americans called it mother. That's what quinoa actually means. So one of the nicknames of it is the mother of all grains. It is absolutely loaded with nutrition. Grains typically don't have protein. Quinoa is very high in protein. Because it's higher in protein, it's less starchy, so it has less carbohydrates. That's a bonus. It has more protein equivalent by weight than meat and eggs, and it has more calcium than dairy. And it has all kinds of other minerals and nutrients in it. It also assists in milk producing for mothers who are breastfeeding. And it tastes fantastic. Who here's had quinoa? Oh, yeah. Okay, so preaching to the choir here, huh? Share it with all your friends. Quinoa is getting very popular. Hopefully it doesn't turn into a large factory farm crop. But it's an amazing, amazing food. So I encourage everyone to continue to eat quinoa. It's also the closest to alkaline grain, if you're into the whole acid-alkaline thing. We eat a lot of acidic foods, and some of the grains are very acidic, but quinoa is actually very close to alkaline. It's about 6.0 on the scale. So there are a lot of uses for it. It's very versatile. I use it in place of pasta. Wild rice is another alternative to your standard grains because wild rice is actually a grass. It's in the grass family. So that's another good alternative. Number 6, nuts and seeds. Genesis 1:29. Nut butters, great snacks. I gave you a list of nuts. I gave you a list of seeds. What you will not see there, and I actually put in parentheses, is peanuts because they're not a nut. It's kind of a misleading word, peanut. It's actually a legume. And a lot of people do have problems with it. Not everybody does, so don't be sad. It's okay if you eat peanut butter if you don't have a major problem with it. But know that it's very high in aflatoxin, which is a fungus, which is why so many people have peanut allergies. So at the very least, if you're going to eat peanut butter, I highly recommend you getting organic. Beans and legumes, number 7. They have been a mainstay for cultures around the world. There are a lot of cultures who literally live on beans and rice. That's all they eat. But if they're active and they're eating quality food, of the beans and rice are quality choices, which usually they're right out of their field, fresh, it's not going to be a problem. They actually are referred to as the poor man's meat because they're very, very affordable and they're so high in nutrition. But they're not a complete protein, so that's why a lot of times they're combined with vegetables or rice or some other type of food. So nuts and seed, beans and legumes, both we'll talk about more in the next class because we're going to talk about the benefits of sprouting and soaking when we do the recipes class. And we're going to talk about how to do that, which ones are best to soak and sprout, but it's very, very important. Beans, for example, cause a lot of problems in people. Just a lot of people are familiar with the gluten problem. There's another problem that's emerging. It's the lectin problem. If you've never heard that word, lectin, L-E-C-T-I-N. There's some foods that are very high in lectins that are causing allergic reactions in a lot of people. And beans and legumes are very, very high in lectins. Your nightshade vegetables are actually also very high in lectins. That's why a lot of people are allergic to tomatoes and eggplants and peppers. The lectins are very hard to digest, just like gluten. So if you soak them, if you sprout them, it really helps you digest and assimilate them better. Number 8, healthy fats. I love this list. It's God created this, and man processed and altered it in this way. So just look at that list. It's pretty straightforward. God gave us a lot of amazing healthy fats. Raw seeds, raw nuts, fish. I didn't mention the bone broth, obviously. That's animal-wise, that's the best healing food you can put in your body to heal the gut, are those bone broths. Again, it's not the meat, it's not the flesh, it's the healthy fats from the bone broth. Coconut, butter, ghee. I am going to stress real quick, because I think it's still a confusing issue for a lot of people. If you're scared of fat, you should not be scared of fat if God made it. That's the easiest way to think about it. If man did something to it, be afraid, be very afraid. That's where the sickness and the illness is coming from. Hydrogenation, margarine, partially hydrogenated soybean oil. It's all the candy, all the packaged foods, the cheap vegetable oils, the canola oil, the soy oil, the corn oil. That's where the problem is. People went on low-fat diets in the 70s. It was a disaster. But people are still scared of fat today. I tell you, the number one fat people are scared of is what? Saturated fat. If God made it, don't be scared of it. That's coconut oil. It's one of the best things on the planet. It will actually heal cardiovascular disease. It will lower your blood pressure. It will lower your cholesterol. There's a book by a naturopath named Bruce Fife, who wrote a book called Coconut Cures. If you want to learn more about coconut and all the amazing, amazing benefits of coconut, it's one of the healthiest things for your heart. So don't be scared of it if God made it. I think I stressed that enough. Number 9, meat and dairy products. Here we must be wise. Stay away from the factory farm stuff, the antibiotics, the growth hormones, the homogenization, the pasteurization. We need to develop relationships with local farmers. That's very key in this area. I also put a little tip in here about wild game. If you think about an animal raised on a farm, like a factory farm, he doesn't exercise much, which is really sad. But if you get a hold of some wild game like deer and goose and duck and bison and some of these things, they actually use their muscles. And it makes it a much healthier, a much leaner meat choice. Dairy products, a lot of people are intolerant to. So you can either do raw. If you're lactose intolerant, a lot of people are lactose intolerant, will do okay with the raw foods. But if you have the leaky gut or compromised issue going on, you might not be able to do dairy at all, even if it's just for a short season. Or you might be okay with the fermented stuff. It's one of those foods we have to be careful with. Pay attention to your body. Number 10, let's talk about some superfoods. This is hands down my favorite category. Now, technically, every food that God created is a superfood, right? I mean, people have used every food for health and healing at some point, but some of them are just really renowned for their beneficial properties, and I just want to touch on a couple of them. They all fit one of the food categories. I just highlighted a few of them here. There's hundreds, but I just highlighted a few. But they are so loaded with nutrition, and they're raw, they're uncooked, they're loaded with enzymes, they're loaded with vitamins and minerals, and they're some of the most amazing things you can put in your body. And I just encourage people to just start putting amazing things in your body and see what happens. And a lot of people are buying tons and tons of supplements. I think it's interesting, the supplement industry sometimes, we learn that something's good for us. You know, we hear vitamin A is good, and B's are good, and C's good, and D's good, and E's good, and K's good, and magnesium's good, and calcium's good, and strontium's good, and manganese is good. And all of a sudden we have 27 bottles in our cupboard. We're like, how did this happen? That's what's great about the superfoods. You can wean off some of that stuff. You can wean off some of the stuff and put some amazing foods that are in their whole form in the natural way God created them that contains all of that and more. So I'm big into the superfoods. You know, it's one of the things I do when I work with people is I try to get them off pills and onto foods. It's very important in my mind. Increasing these types of superfoods will change your body chemistry. It will make you start to enjoy foods. It will decrease cravings for sugars, sweets, artificial foods, because your body will finally be getting some of the things it's missing. That's what happens when you eat that processed food and there's no nutrients in it. Our body's always starving. You know, people eat McDonald's and an hour later they're hungry. Well, they never actually fed themselves. So you put superfoods in your body and you won't be hungry all the time. So I'm going to touch on just a couple. You can read a lot of this on your own. Cacao we got to talk about because it's chocolate and it's one of the most amazing foods ever. It's probably one of the most top 5 healing foods on the planet. Again, God gave us a sweet taste because he loves us, and he gave us cacao because he loves us. And it's okay to eat them, but you're not going to get any health benefits from a Twix bar or a Hershey's bar. And if you think you are, you're fooling yourself. We have to make the right, wise choices. We have to eat what God gave us in its original form. And raw cacao is hands down one of the most powerful things for increasing your mood, making you feel amazing, has one of the highest antioxidant contents of any food on the planet, the highest magnesium content of any food known on the planet. That's something we're chronically deficient in. Cacao does make you feel good. Chaga. Chaga is a medicinal mushroom. I'm a huge fan of medicinal mushrooms. Medicinal mushrooms are mushrooms that grow on the side of trees. They're not like the little mushrooms that go on the ground. Be careful picking those. You're not sure what you're going to get. But chaga mushroom is one of the most studied herbs on the planet right now because of its anti-cancer, anti-tumor, immune-building effect. I could tell you so many stories of chaga mushroom cream that have seen malignant melanomas go away, tumors fall off of people's bodies. Chaga is this highest known source on the planet of a antioxidant called superoxydismutase that is produced in the liver. The chaga helps you produce that. It's very healing for the liver, the kidneys. It's loaded with nutrients. It's a hormone balancer. It's great for the pituitary gland and stimulating growth and balancing hormones. And they call it the mushroom of immortality. That's the nickname that the Chinese gave it. Cod liver oil. So we talked about organ meats. Cod liver oil. Amazing food. The Eskimos fermented it. I think that's the best way to get it. There is a company out there that does that. But there are a lot of good cod liver oil supplements out there. The supplement that a lot of people's moms and grandmas tortured them with as a child, it actually is good for you. So people are starting to take it again if they can kind of get over the mental anguish of their childhood from that. But cod liver oil, very high in vitamin A, vitamin D, your essential fatty acids, great for hormone balancing, great for anyone trying to get pregnant or anyone who is pregnant or anyone who is breastfeeding. One of the best things you can consume. Maca. Maca is a Peruvian root vegetable. It grows, anything that grows in the mountains at over 10,000 feet has to be a pretty powerful plant. And there aren't a lot of foods that can do it, and maca is one of them. It's a root vegetable. It's been used for hormone balancing for thousands of years. Again, fertility. So it's great for men and women, for strength, stamina, endurance, energy. In women, it balances hormones. It helps with fertility. For men, it actually increases testosterone production. So men or women can consume maca with wonderful benefits. Pumpkin seeds, great for men, especially men or women, but great for men because it's high in zinc, high in magnesium, anti-inflammatory, one of the best foods for the prostate gland. That's why it's really good for men. The pumpkin oil, very, very therapeutic for men and the prostate. Quinoa, we already talked about. Shilajit, the nickname in Sanskrit, well, in Sanskrit, it actually means conqueror of mountains and destroyer of all weakness. Now, that's something I want to take. And what's interesting about Shilajit is one of the things that the Russian athletes were taking in the 80s when they were dominating the Olympics. And they were winning everything. And so they, of course, thought they were on steroids, and they were testing them all the time. And they knew about herbs. They knew about foods. They were taking rhodiola and ginseng and some of these tonic herbs, and they were taking Shilajit. It's very, very powerful. The reason it's so powerful, it's actually the decomposition of 7,000 different plants in one substance. So it's high in fulvic acid, humic acid, which are strong antiviral components that's used in a lot of viral conditions. And it's also known as like pitch, like if you think of what a mineral pitch is. Super, super high in nutrition. Great for blood sugar balance, too, for diabetics. Spirulina. Chlorella was earlier. Chlorella, spirulina, I kind of lumped together. They both have unique properties, but spirulina is awesome because it is probably the most nutritious known food on the entire planet. It is the main food for a lot of animals that live on this earth, and it's a multivitamin in itself. I mean, it has beta-carotene, for example. People know, well, I should eat beta-carotene because it's good for my eyes. We eat carrots because it's good for our eyesight. Spirulina has 39 times more beta-carotene than carrots. It has a complete B vitamin complex. It's dependent on the grade of it. It's 60 to 70% protein, complete amino acid profile. You could go on forever about spirulina, but it's hands down one of the best foods you can put in your body. Great for increasing energy too, balancing blood sugars. And it's a blood cleanser. So you will have no body odor if you eat spirulina. Okay, I can't promise that, but spirulina, chlorella, things that are high in chlorophyll actually do cleanse the blood, and actually you will see body odor disappear. I wasn't just joking. So let's go to Roman numeral 3, eating on a budget. I'm going to give a few examples here of things we can do. A, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. As I mentioned earlier, we got to get back and we have to start taking time and putting effort into our food. It's something we don't put a lot of time into, and it's probably one of the most important things in our life is our food, and we don't put a lot of time into it. And contrary to popular belief, because of an article I just read yesterday, really kind of highlighted this for me, we don't put a lot of money into it either. There was a study done in 2010, and this is on Dr. Mercola's website. That's a good one to subscribe to if you want some really good health information. A study done in 2010 said Americans spent about 9% of their income on food. And it's about 50-50 eating out versus what they eat in the home. 9% might sound like a lot, and that might be what a lot of people budget. But in the 60s, it was 17%, and in the 30s, it was 24%. Americans actually spend the least amount of food than any culture on the entire planet. That seems hard to believe. Countries that a lot of third world countries, like Kenya, for example, 45% of their income spent on food. And a lot of European countries, most of them are in the teens, like 14%, 17%. We spend 9% on food. Why? Because our food is cheaper. We're eating fast food, and we're eating junk food. So we're not investing in our health. We're not investing in our children's health. We're spending the least amount of money on food, and we're buying stuff. So we need to kind of maybe relook at our budgets and really start investing in what's important. And this quote, I just had to put this quote in here. And I could include money as well. But if you don't have time for your health, eventually you'll be forced to find time for your sickness. And it's so true. I mean, when you get sick, it consumes a lot of your time, a lot of your effort, a lot of your money. And people don't think a lot about their health, unfortunately, until they lose it. When you lose it, it's everything. And people spend thousands of dollars, especially when they're ill. I talked in a class a few classes ago about diabetes, for example. It costs hundreds of dollars a month to maintain your disease if you're a diabetic, from drugs and insulin, other medications. You have to come up with that money. So we can invest wisely now and never have to spend money on things we shouldn't be spending money on. Paragraph B, you're going to eat. You're going to eat. You're going to spend money on food. So you can either plan ahead and prepare things ahead of time, or when that hunger strikes you when you're out and about, you're going to spend more money and you're not going to make wise choices. And that's what happens. So we really have to start planning ahead. Eating on the run just doesn't work. Paragraph C, I encourage everyone to make a log of what they're spending their money on. So we don't have money to eat healthy. Again, we're only spending 9% of our money on food and 91% on everything else. But a lot of times we still kind of do our creature comforts. You know, we're at Starbucks every day spending $5 to $10. We're eating out at restaurants all the time. Not everybody, but a lot of us. And that's expensive. Now, I did put in the last sentence in here, I had to throw this in, that mom does need a break once in a while, and you should eat out once in a while. You got to give the family a break if you're slaving all day in the kitchen, especially if you got 3, 4, 5 kids. I work with a lot of moms, and it's overwhelming a lot of times. Sometimes it's okay to just take a break. So I had to throw that in there. Paragraph D, eating healthy should not be an additional expense. It's funny, people are buying supplements and start buying healthier foods, and it's like, man, it's just so expensive to buy these supplements and eat healthy. It's because people aren't thinking of it as something that's part of their expenditure, that's not worked into their budget. It's like an extra expense. And it needs to be something we need to prioritize. And if we replace the healthy choices with our convenience foods, our Starbucks, our snacks, our eating out at restaurants excessively, you'll find that you can work it into your budget. You really, really can. So let's talk about how to eat healthy on a budget. I'm just going to give you 5 things. Farmers markets, we've talked about it over and over. And eating in season. I don't think we've really stressed this much. But if you're eating foods that aren't in season, it's going to be more expensive. And if you go to the farmers market at the height of squash, cucumber, zucchini, tomato, whatever season it is, oh my gosh, they're practically giving this stuff away. I mean, really. Every year, I can't wait for that. It's like a month and a half window where I can get cucumber, zucchini, and squash for $1. And so if you want to juice or do a juice fast, that's when you do it, right? It just makes sense. So eat what's in season. It's healthier because it's fresh out of the garden. It's not shipped 2,000 miles because it's not in season. I give the example of, I actually used to work in the trucking industry, if you can imagine that. For 8 years, I worked in the trucking industry. And I look like a trucking industry guy. So the stories I heard were crazy. I'll just share a couple with you. I could have mentioned this in classes before, but we had a driver who hauled food ingredients that went into the food supply, and everything he hauled was hazmat. He was a hazmat certified carrier. So these were hazmat placarded ingredients that were going into our foods. That's one. That's just crazy. The other thing that really struck me was there was a trucking company who was a flatbed carrier, and what they hauled was produce. And one of the things they hauled was apples. And he told me what happens with apples, because apples aren't always in season, right? Apples don't grow year-round around here, and people always want to have their apples. So what they would do is they would harvest the apples when they're in season. Of course, they have to get them before they're ripe. They would bring them to huge warehouses. They would load them into the warehouse, and they would actually, with vacuums, suck all of the oxygen out of the warehouse and spray gases on them so that they wouldn't ripen. And then when winter came along and everyone wanted their apples, they would actually take them out of the warehouse, then they would ripen, and then they'd be in your store. So this is the extremes we go to eat fruit or other foods that aren't in season. God, I got a little oohs and ahs on that one. Number 2, co-ops. What's a co-op? A co-op is basically a buyer's club, for lack of a better term or description. People get together and they buy things in bulk, and they get them at much better prices. So find a good co-op and get involved in that. Number 3, organic is not always necessary. I'll put it on, I think it's on my website. It's something I always give to people. Maybe I'll just attach it to these notes when I put them online. But it's a list of what you should always buy organic and what you really never need to buy organic. And if you know what that list is, you can save a lot of money not buying organic. Number 4, Asian markets or other ethnic markets. There's Mexican, Spanish, there's Indian markets. There's all different kinds of ethnic markets, and they have such a different variety of foods. I love it. I love going to the Asian market. Now, you're not going to find organic produce normally. But again, if you know what to look for and you know what to buy, you can save a fortune at the Asian market. I mean, I can literally get 3-4 times the amount of produce at the Asian market than I go to get at Whole Foods or Trader Joe's or the other health stores because they're so much more expensive. Number 5, gardens. I mean, there's nothing more rewarding. There's nothing better for involving your children and actually teaching them where food comes from and seeing things grow and getting excited about what they're eating. And nothing is more affordable than your own garden. 99-cent seeds and you got food for 4 months. Paragraph F, healthy foods at great prices. Number 1, fruits and vegetables in season. You'll save money if it's in season. Number 2, eggs. There's lots of farmers that have eggs. I just ordered my first dozen eggs from a local farmer. I'm so excited today. And if you get them straight off the farm, wow, they are bright yellow oat yolks, loaded with nutrition, and they're really, really affordable. And they're one of the healthiest foods you can eat. I mentioned that last class, in my opinion. Number 3, millet, buckwheat, amaranth. These ancient seed grains are very affordable. Millet, even at Whole Foods, is 99 cents a pound. So that means through your co-op, that stuff should be like basically free. And millet is very nutritious. Like I said before, no gluten containing, very high in nutrients, doesn't feed infections, and it's very versatile. I have a lot of recipes on my website using millet and quinoa and a lot of these ancient seed grains. Number 4, I highlighted out quinoa because I really, really like the nutrient content of quinoa. But quinoa really fluffs up and makes a lot of food. You can take a couple of cups of quinoa, make a quinoa salad. And when I say quinoa salad, I'm talking you cook the quinoa and you cut up a bunch of vegetables and you throw it all together. It's like the easiest thing ever. And you can feed a whole family, 4 or 5 people, with a couple cups of quinoa. The whole meal costs maybe $5. Bone broth soups. So if you have a good source for chickens, for example, you can usually get chickens for $5 a piece. And if you're buying the organic ones at the store, they might be a little bit more expensive. But I'd really like to find some better sources. And if you can just get the bones and do the bone broth soup, a lot of times people just give those away, if you can find a good source of those. And then paragraph G, 5 action steps that you can begin tomorrow. Number 1, eating in-season produce. Now is the time to start that. Farmers markets are going, so I challenge everyone, even just for the summer, just really focus on eating what's in season and see how much money you save, see how much better you feel. So our bodies will be more in line with that, with eating the foods that grow in our environment at the time that they're growing. Number 2, pick a superfood and just start eating it. Just start putting God's amazing things in your body and things will happen. Your body will change. All of a sudden, you won't want that junk food anymore because your body's going to be very happy at the new exciting things you're putting into it. I gave my top 5 just for fun. Your algae, spirulina, chlorella, quinoa, raw cacao, coconut, and cod liver oil. If you had to, like if you made me pick a second top 5, I would pick maca, shilajit, bee pollen, chaga mushroom, and goji berries. Number 3, try an Asian market or another ethnic market if you've never been. I gave a few examples of some of the things I get there. I like getting ginger and coconut, aloe vera, burdock root, garlic, bok choy. There's 100 more. Those are just a few things I pick up, but those are good choices. Don't often have to get those organic. Burdock root or gobo root, this is what's cool about the Asian market. I think they have that at Whole Foods too. But there's a lot of things that are unique that you won't find in other stores, very medicinal herbs. I mean, burdock root is a blood-cleansing, very powerful, powerful herb that's used to heal and detox the liver and cleanse the blood and purify the blood. And you can go to a health food store and spend a lot of money on burdock root, or you can go to the Asian market and get a whole pack of it with roots this long for $2. Bitter melon, for example, that's great for blood sugar balance. You can get it at the Asian market for nothing. So if you know what to look for, you can really get some amazing things. Number 4, start juicing. If you've never juiced, start juicing. And this is the time, spring cleansing, summer. When it's hot, it's the best time to juice. I'm not a big fan of juice fasting when it's 20 degrees and snowing. So now is the time to juice fast. Go back to getting the in-season stuff and start doing some juicing. And number 5, get fermented. Start doing some fermented foods. Bragg's raw apple cider vinegar, I think, is the easiest way to go. I highly encourage people to try some sauerkraut or some kimchi. Kimchi was a total foreign concept to me, but now I eat it and I love it. Sauerkraut I didn't like it at first. Now I really, really like it. I'm telling you, your body changes. Your body will literally change when you start putting good things in it. If you get the kefir or the yogurt, quality I think is very important. So a lot of people are making their own or finding local farmers that are doing these types of things. So those are 5 tips there. And I gave you a quote at the end here. I know a lot of you are probably familiar with John G. Lake. I like reading John G. Lake because not only is he amazing man of God, but he was very in tune with understanding that what he put in his body and what he put in his holy temple was critically important to his relationship with God and how close he was able to get to God. So I highly encourage reading some John G. Lake, but one of his quotes, and I just wanted to end on this, is that mankind has a right to health and he has a right to be delivered from sin. If you don't have it, it's because you're being cheated out of your inheritance. It belongs to you. In the name of Jesus Christ, go after it and get it. Amen. Cool.
Thank you.
Let's do it, Q&A.
All right, Q&A time.
I just want to say I'm very blessed. My wife is making sauerkraut now. And
All right.
It's really good stuff. What do you think about eating beef heart and beef tongue and brains? No brains?
No,
Oh.
I think they're all great. I'm just having flashbacks to Indiana Jones when they ate the monkey brains. That really freaked me out. But yeah, I think it's from if it's from a healthy animal. What's interesting, the inherent wisdom of a lot of ancient cultures was if somebody had an eye problem, they'd actually eat eyes. And if people had something going on with their brain, they'd eat brain, or a liver problem, they'd eat liver. And as crazy as that sounds to us, it healed them. So yeah, I think those things are fine if it's from a healthy animal.
Yep.
Go ahead.
When you see natural flavor or spices on labels, is that always MSG?
Boy, that's a really good question. We don't really know, is the answer. If it says artificial flavors, it's obviously artificial. But if it says natural flavors, there's no regulation behind that. So it can contain pretty much anything. So yeah, it could contain MSG. We really don't know. So that's the best answer I have, is you don't know what you're getting when it says natural flavors. Now, I'm big on knowing my source of where things come from. So call the company. Of course, we can't guarantee that they're going to be honest, but say, hey, this has natural flavors in it. What do you put in it? And if they say, well, it's a secret formula, we can't tell you. Well, I would be nervous about that. So
2 items, krill oil, and the other one is glutinous millet.
there's no gluten in millet.
No, not gluten in millet. It's like glutinous rice. It's a sweet rice, a sticky rice. There's a glutinous millet. It's a little stickier.
Oh, yeah, it's like gelatinous, yeah. So what's the question on that?
You highly recommended cod liver oil.
Right.
But I know Dr. Mercola is always promoting krill oil.
Yes.
What do you think?
Krill oil is fantastic. So the reason krill oil is healthy is because krill oil is an algae. Krill is an algae. And what do fish eat? Algae. They eat krill. So there's a nutrient in it called astaxanthin. And astaxanthin is known to be, at least right now, the most potent antioxidant that exists. So astaxanthin is something I give to a lot of people. Anybody who works out and wants strength, stamina, endurance, wants to cut their muscle recovery time, wants to protect their heart or their eyesight. I don't know who wants to do any of that. But take astaxanthin, because that's what the krill is. And that's why salmon oil and a lot of these other fish oils are good for us, because the fish eat the algae. So it's got the antioxidants, it's got the healthy fats, and krill is getting right to the source. So yes, I'm a big fan of krill oil.
All right, let's go.
Let's go over here, yeah. This side always gets neglected. We need to go over here.
I have a statement and a question. The statement is there's a bar in South St. Louis that has existed for a long time, and they used to serve fried brain sandwiches. They look
Interesting.
like fried eggs. But the other question is, you talked about the burdock root that you can get with the long. What do you do? How do you fix it then? Do you eat the
Burdock
whole
root?
thing? Yeah.
So burdock root, so it's a root, so you can boil it and make a tea, or you can, I will take my peeler, and I'll peel the skin off, and cut it up and put it into salads, or just juice it in your juicer. Yeah, it's fantastic.
I was just wondering the source of this quote on number 3, eating on a budget. If you don't have time for your health, eventually you'll be forced to find time for your sickness. Who is the?
I'll have to look.
I was just curious on that. 'Cause I
Yeah,
wanted to
I'll
use
have
it.
to look. Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head. Yeah, usually I put that in there. I'm sorry I didn't.
I have two questions. For coconut oil, does it need to be cold processed? And for juicing, are you missing out some of the fiber if where it takes away the peel?
Clarify that last question for me.
When you're juicing, are you getting enough fiber just from the juice? I mean, because some juicers take out all the
Right.
peeling.
Okay, good question. So the coconut oil, yes, you definitely want cold pressed. Extra virgin, good quality source. If it's cooked or heated, you really don't want to consume it or put it on your skin. You really maybe just use it for cooking, but I don't see a reason to even buy that type of coconut oil because it's good for so many things. I mean, you want to eat it and put it on your skin and use it for so many things. On the juicing, there's a couple of different ways you can get it. If you want to get the highest nutrition, vitamins, minerals, nutrients, drink the juice. I mean, that's where you get the heavy nutrition. A lot of people, especially if they're sick, can't handle the fiber. But for the average person, having a Vitamix and actually blend it all together and drinking a blended drink and getting the fiber as well is awesome. And it will help with bowel movements, the fiber. So to answer your question, when you're juicing it, you're not going to get any fiber. But you're going to get the most nutrition for sure.
Two questions. One is, what about soy with Bragg's amino acid?
That's a good question. I was meaning to look into that. I don't know if it's fermented or not. I would hope it would be fermented. I don't know if it is or not. So, yeah, that would be questionable.
Okay. Secondly, with all of us here looking for probably some resources such as a co-op, is it okay that I ask if anybody who has openings in a co-op or interested in pulling together could meet afterwards, maybe in the hall? Or
I think there is a co-op. I'm not sure the status of who can get in or not. Yeah, I think there's somebody back there, so there you go.
Okay, great.
So,
I will see you
get
afterwards.
involved in that after.
Thank you.
Shaga mushrooms and maca, where can you get that around here?
Pretty much any health food store these days.
Okay.
And you can even get them at Whole Foods. I have them at my place, but yeah, you
Okay.
can get them in most health food stores because they're pretty popular items, especially maca. Maca is pretty well known. Shaga's a little more rare.
Okay. And maybe your fiance would know this, but a substitute for mayo?
Jen? Can you give her the mic real quick?
Who was that?
One option is to make your own. You can do it a vegan way would be to soak like sunflower seeds or macadamia nuts or some type of raw nut and then blend it with apple cider vinegar, lemon juice, sea salt, and kind of create your own mayonnaise base. Or you could do like a raw egg type of one. I don't do a lot of eggs personally, so I don't know one off the top of my head, but you could do one with eggs, olive oil, and just kind of look into that online.
Thank you. Yeah, we're fine. We can do a few more. Yeah.
Okay, got two questions. I want to know what your thoughts on alkaline water is and the highest pH level that you should drink it at, and well, I guess just that one first.
I could spend like an hour on that question alone.
man.
So here's the thing with alkaline water. It's a tough question. It really is a tough question. Let me first start by saying that I like to find what's naturally occurring in nature. And most water in nature is right around a neutral pH. So 7.0 to 7.5 if you get mountain spring water. They say that there's alkaline water like in glaciers and this certain location or whatever, but it's not something that's naturally occurring in nature for the most part. I think it benefits a lot of people because people's bodies are so acidic, especially in America. I mean, people are eating sugar and processed foods and soda and lots of meat, and everything they put in their body is acid. So I think alkalizing the body with alkaline water can benefit people in the short term. The tricky part is that if you talked to 1,000 of the most brilliant chemists and physicists who have studied water their whole life on the planet, 500 would promote alkaline water, and 500 would say that's the worst thing you could ever put in your body. It goes both sides of the coin, and they'll give all the reasons why on either side. So it's one of those things I just encourage people to research it, explore it. The best water, hands down, is fresh mountain spring water. You know, you're not going to find anything better than that. But I think alkaline water there's no doubt that alkaline water has healed lots of people. There's no doubt about it. If it's good to consume every day for the rest of your life, I can't answer that question. I don't know if anyone really can.
Okay. Second question, what do you know about oxygen therapies?
Boy, a lot. Otto von Warburg won the Nobel Prize in 1931 because he figured out that cancer could not survive in an oxygen-rich environment. We've known that oxygen is one of the fastest, easiest ways to heal the body. I mean, what in more abundance did God give us than oxygen? I mean, why we're not using oxygen in therapy, oxygen in hospitals today for therapy is mind-boggling. We're only using it for life-saving, which is good. If I have a heart attack, give me some oxygen. But we're not using it for healing. So you have hyperbaric oxygen chambers. There's a place in North Kansas City you can go get in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. There is ozone therapy, which is illegal in the United States, but still done in other countries around the world to heal cancers and brain tumors and things like that. Then there's food-grade hydrogen peroxide, which a lot of people use. Hydrogen peroxide is something that's naturally occurring in nature, and you can do oxygen therapy using that as well. And then there's all kinds of things that oxygenate the body. That's why spirulina is so powerful. It's one of the things it does is it oxygenates the body. You can actually buy oxygen water. Like I have an oxygen water drop that's 11% oxygen, and I give it to people with eye issues, any kind of a pink eye, conjunctivitis, allergies around the eye, anything like that. They drop it in their eye, it's gone. So yeah, oxygen, awesome.
For someone with fibromyalgia, what do you recommend?
Fibromyalgia is a toxicity issue. It's a buildup of fibrin or fibrinolytic tissues in the muscles. And it's always diet change, first of all. But the main thing that I found that helps with fibromyalgia is cleaning up that fibrinolytic tissue that's in the muscles. And the only thing I know of that really is good at that is systemic enzymes. So systemic enzyme therapy goes through and it eats up that excess fibrin, and usually within a few days, people have relief. You know, it might take 3 to 6 months to fully be symptom-free. But along with the diet change and the systemic enzymes, that works pretty darn good.
All right, one more over here, and then we'll go back to the other side.
Okay.
I was just wondering about hydration. Somebody asked me to ask this question, but they're very dehydrated and have like dry eyes and wake up in the morning and like their whole mouth is totally dry and they're drinking water.
Yeah. So there's kind of two parts to that question. If people have chronic dry eyes and dry mouth, a lot of times there's an infection involved, like a low-grade infection in the body. So it'd be eating a diet that doesn't feed infection. That would be a start. I just wanted to mention that just in case that's what it is. But a lot of people aren't hydrated just because we don't have good water anymore. If you had fresh mountain spring water, you'd never have a problem with hydration. So how do you hydrate yourself? Put minerals in the water. Put sea salt in the water. I have magnesium prill beads that I use, which is little beads of magnesium, and you put it in the water, and it actually changes the structure of the water. It makes it, they say make it wetter, but that just sounds weird to me. So I say it makes it thinner. It changes the structure of it, makes the water thinner so it absorbs into the cells properly. So that's something you can do. You can structure your water. They have like vortex machines that you can like spin the water. And yeah, again, that sounds weird, but that's what happens naturally in nature when water's flowing down a mountainside. It's naturally structured, and there's no structure in our water anymore. It's dead because it's either tap water or it's processed through filters. So it's tricky, but adding minerals, doing the magnesium prill beads, vortexing your water, those are just some things you can do to get better hydration. The other thing is a drink that's on the website. We've joked about it before, the electrolyte margarita, but it's water with Bragg's apple cider vinegar and the juice of a couple lemons or limes with a little stevia for taste, and it tastes like a lemonade or a limeade. And it's very, very, very hydrating. Very hydrating. So it's on the website under juices and smoothies, under recipes. So let's do a couple more.
So you mentioned raw cacao powder. What's the difference between that and like unsweetened baking powder that says it's just cocoa? And then also, what do you do with bee pollen? Like, how do you eat that?
Good questions. The cocoa is just heavily processed. I mean, yeah, it probably started out as raw cacao, but it's going to have none of the medicinal benefits. I mean, it might taste good, but it's not going to have any of the medicinal benefits. Cacao, I think this is maybe an important point to make right here. Cacao is so obviously popular, imagine that, and everybody around the world is consuming it. So it's actually turned into and I don't know if it's genetically modified or hybridized, so I don't want to use the wrong term, but one of those two things is going on with cacao. And they're actually growing cacao in these little bushes in thousands and thousands of acres of cacao growing on these little bushes. Well, has anybody ever seen cacao? It's not a little bush. It's a big tree. And the name of that tree in Latin is Ariba nacional. So you want to know what you're getting. If you want to get the health benefits of cacao and eat the most powerful food on the planet, you better be getting the Ariba nacional variety and know your source, because otherwise you're just getting an offshoot or you're getting something that's heavily processed. So that's what's going on with the cocoa. And then I forgot, did you ask a second question? Oh, the bee pollen. So the bee pollen, just treat it like a food. Just throw it in a shake or smoothie. It's great in yogurt. Those would be a couple options. Teaspoon to a tablespoon. Yeah, a day. It would be a good amount.
I would love to know where you're getting $5 chickens. Today I paid, I think, $13 at Whole Foods for an organic. And then we have a farmer that we worked with, and I think it's maybe $12 for the little guys and $15 for the big guys. But we're doing bone broth, so I would love to have $5 chickens.
Yeah, I don't know where to get them either, so if anybody knows, let me know. No, I actually used to get chickens at a local, I don't remember the name of the place, but it was one of those small, it was like a small ethnic market. And he sold chickens there, and they weren't organic, but they didn't use hormones or antibiotics or anything like that. And I bought chickens there for $5. It was a little place in downtown Overland Park. I don't remember the name of it. But we just have to start looking around. Yeah, I don't know exactly. Let's do a couple more. It's only 8:20, so.
Yeah, my wife's done a lot of research, and you do have probably the least inexpensive coconut oil. So
cool.
Check out Vaughn's. Anyway, kind of a plug. I mean, we're big on. We raise chickens. We got the eggs, and we have duck eggs, and sometimes they're so big I can't even close the lid on the things. But I didn't bring flyers, but we have a greenhouse. We have, I think, 850 tomato and pepper plants, heirloom and organic. We're going to bring some flyers next week. We did 2 weeks ago, but we really encourage that, and we give away the key for pearls. It's a gift from God, but we have those, and we're harvesting our own. And
Awesome.
we have a family friend and a relative that they're getting huge relief from consuming Kefir.
Cool.
And so we're using raw, organic coconut milk, almond milk, goat's milk, stuff like that. But we're getting a big, cultivation of the pearls. And we started out with a tablespoon. And so it just, God's gift, and it multiplies, and it's just awesome. So
Love it.
Getting a lot of relief from that. So.
Thank you.
I have a water question. We have a big Berkey water filter that, we just throw our tap water through. Is that, it's better because it's cleaning all the stuff out of our tap water. Is it okay, healthy water to drink? That we live on that water.
Yeah, I don't have all the details, but I've heard good things about the Berkey filtration systems. Okay. So I've heard good things about it. I don't know. I think something that's important to know is it taking everything out of the water, like reverse osmosis or distilled is taking everything out. Make sure you put some minerals back in. That's going to add some structure back into it, and that's going to help you to be hydrated better. So find out on the Berkey filters if there's some minerals left in it or if everything's taken out. And if everything's taken out, add some sea salt or some mineral drops or something back in it to structure the water a little bit, like the magnesium pearl bead, something like that. Okay, last one.
Hi, I'm surprised that chia seeds and Celtic sea salt aren't on your top 5. I'm
So
just
am I.
wondering what you think about it. So I'm just wondering what, where I don't see them even anywhere here. The chia seeds and Celtic sea salt.
It's God's fault. He made way too many good things. Really. Yeah, chia seeds, it's my favorite fiber. It's my favorite fiber because chia seeds are gelatinous, kind of mucilaginous, and they're not going to cause problems for people that have the diverticulitis and a lot of the intestinal bowel disorders. They're very slippery and they slide right through. Best fiber for diabetics, chia seeds, hands down. So definitely my favorite fiber. Yeah, Celtic sea salt. Oh my gosh, we could do an hour class on salt. Definitely one of the best God-given things on the planet. So.
Okay. My last statement is for 8 years at IHOP here, we have had a very large buying club co-op, and I've coordinated it for the last 8 years. We have a challenge with our pickup location that we can't get any bigger right now. That's why it's kind of shut down. But if anybody wants to email when we possibly can take more openings, but everything you're doing here, we get through United Natural Foods as a buying club. And it's way cheaper than going through Whole Foods or whatever for a lot of these things. shilohindbulk@ihop.org is the email address. If people just want to email, and I can just keep it until we can find a place that's big enough to accommodate more people. Yeah, Shiloh in Bulk, ShilohInBulk, shilohindbulk@ihop.org. And it's kind of grown like IHOP has. It's bigger than the world. We're one of the biggest co-ops in the country with this buying club that we've got. And I'm negotiating with them to try to get more discount from them because we've maxed out we can't get more discount. And so and our pickup location is a warehouse, and we just need to find a bigger place and so we're working on that, but it is somewhat connected with IHOP and all these things. And the one other thing I will say is there's an oil place called Columbus Foods out of Chicago that we've been able to get 7-pound jugs of the best coconut oil for $37. That's including shipping. And so if people want to look that up on the web, and I think if you order 6 to a box, it's the best shipping price. But anyway, $37 for the really best coconut oil and other really good oils too. But the main one you've mentioned, I just want to mention Columbus Foods. It's a soap maker's company as well, but they just happen to have the best coconut oil anywhere for that price. Pardon? It's a 7-pound jug, and so we get it. We kind of group buy a lot of things through our co-op, but that is one thing that people can just get themselves. Call up the number and order for $37 for 7-pound jug. So.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that'll do it. Thanks, guys.